Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today's project we got for you is what to expect when becoming a strength coach.
Yeah, this is a little segment we want to do for you guys. If you're someone who's in high school or an undergrad or someone who's looking at getting into the field of college strength and conditioning, this is sort of a what you need to know to make the decision for yourself of whether or not you really want to pursue this, because it does require a special type of person.
Yeah, there's some things to keep in mind as well. A lot of important things to make sure that you are preparing for the athletes.
Yeah, you want to we're going to do sort of like a SWOT analysis, really some strengths and not even a SWOT, it's a strengths and threats to our industry, stuff that we've learned over the years, and then kind of going forward what you should know, just some final thoughts. But one of the biggest strengths that we have, I think, in our industry is like who we get to work with. It's all about the athletes, which is our number one most important rule when you become a strength coach, and that's
making sure that the athlete's well-being and health is number one. Not allowing anything as far as personally or someone on the outside telling you it should be. If your athletes their health isn't number one or their well-being is not number one, then you're probably doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, they come first. The people that you work with, your athletes, you don't have a job without them. And the sport coaches, they're the head of the ship. You always must respect their work, because at the end of the day, it's their program. But those athletes, their health and safety and well-being, that is number one. Do no harm. And then the second thing goes right along with it. It's not about you. You see strength and conditioning coaches sometimes in the limelight getting people hyped up. Energy is a good thing, but never should the focus be on what you do in your role. You are a support system to lift those up around you. You are someone who is meant to be in the background.
Yeah, and again, that's to our own fault in the idea that strength and conditioning coaches are such special people, again, because of the amount of passion that we have for our athletes and our sports, how intelligent it takes to be a strength and conditioning coach, the understanding of how all the sports work and how we can affect sport performance are all things that make strength and conditioning coaches incredibly special.
Yeah. When we look at the field itself and who strength coaches are, like that's one of our biggest strengths, is I think it takes that special type of person. You have to make that decision early on, because a lot of people will come into it looking to reap, taken from Kurt Hester here, looking to reap the benefits of training and seeing the results and want to make a lot of money for it. That's not what it's about. And those people will leave the field as quickly as they came into it. And so something that our field does really, really well is it makes sure and it retains a certain type of person for that. And this is not to like blow up any sort of ego. You have to be humble in your spot or you'll get taken out quickly. It is not about you. That's a super big piece of this.
Yeah, and some threats to kind of consider as well, as sometimes because we are such hardworking people, and that's just the type of people that we are as far as our DNA goes, something that we really struggle with, I know personally, is a work and life balance. We want to make sure, again, we're doing everything we can for our athletes, but if we aren't able to have a healthy life ourselves, then we can't pour 100% of everything that we're doing for our athletes. So making sure you take time to be at home with wife and kids, dogs, cats, whatever it is, and making sure that maybe you take a little bit of time for lunch to kind of decompress on everything and whatever that is. So when you do get back on the floor, you're able to pour everything you can into those athletes.
Yeah, without question, it's going to require more hours than a 9 to 5. And I think anyone who gets into this field, regardless of your commitment level, figures that out pretty quickly. And it's okay to have hours that are not orthodox. That's fine. You just have to realize it's not so much of a scale as it is an ebb and flow. You're going to have some busy seasons. You're going to have lighter seasons. You've got to figure out and you've got to communicate with your loved ones, those who are in your circle, what's important, how you're going to get it done. And you have to make that decision early on. So if you're looking at getting into this field, you have to figure out what sacrifices you're willing to make and how is that going to affect your personal life. Because one thing that's really a big problem in this industry, and it's something we're all working to improve, but you have a whirlwind, which leads to high turnover. And that whirlwind is comprised of low pay with high work hours, an overabundance of candidates with low restriction to get in. and he's going to touch more on that in a second, but an overabundance of candidates and a very small amount of jobs, especially in the college sector. And then you combine that with coaches moving all around the country in a very who-you-know system, and it just creates this constant in and out revolver door type of culture, which we are fighting against.
Yeah, and something that's really important to kind of keep in mind is the type of qualifications that goes into becoming a strength and conditioning coach. At the moment, one of the bigger things is all you have to do is have a degree and pass a test, which I think is really important, and that test is important. But again, there's nothing in it that is specific to only allowing strength and conditioning coaches to take this certification. On top of that, though, we also have very little as far as evaluation standards for our industry. A lot of the reasons why you get hired or fired comes down to sport coaches and what they want, and it might not be a culture fit, instead of it being more like, what exactly evaluation standard-wise are you doing well to allow you to continue to have your job? Or what are things that you are doing not well and maybe you should revisit so you can maybe have a better chance of maybe not having that opportunity to lose your job? So it's just one of those things where there's no definitive evaluation standard for our industry.
Yeah, that's a really difficult problem that we have to tackle, and it's something that a lot of strength coaches before us have talked about. It's something that is pretty common knowledge in our field. Is it's not as simple as wins and losses with us, and it's not as simple as are your athletes happy and are the people happy. There is a standard that you have to sit down and set, I think, both from the athletic director to your bosses, who are anyone who's a sport coach, and then if you're in an assistant position as a strength coach, your head strength coach. You need to sit down and have those conversations going in, and we don't want to detract too far of just someone who's looking at the field, but know that there is a disconnect between what is expected for a job performance and then what is truly defined. And it's something we're constantly working on and improving, and it's going to be unique to you and your environment that you're in. And that's kind of which leads us to our final place is, when you're starting out as a strength and conditioning coach, like some of the things you should be looking for.
Yeah, so there's some really important things to kind of keep in mind. The most important thing is to, again, understand what your goals are specifically, and to not just chase the school name or a specific title, and instead you want to work at a place that allows your ideas to flourish, meaning you can go to the sport coach and say, I'm the professional and this is something that I think is really important for our athletes to go through, but also at the same time understand that you're a support staff for that sport coach. So yes, you're the professional, but it's their team. So you have to kind of communicate to them your ideas and an understanding and a vocabulary that they're going to resonate with and see that it's going to benefit their program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's never about chasing the name tag. If you're chasing the name tag, you don't belong in the field. It's okay to have a long-term goal. Hey, my family grew up in such and such city, and it would be really cool to move back to that town. That's fine. But if you're chasing money and you're chasing fame, this field is not for you. There's a lot of other places you can make a lot more money with a way less hours of work. It's also good if you're looking at becoming an intern or getting into this field, going along, not chasing big names. Smaller schools have a lot of coaches that learn to do a lot with very little. And you're going to be, most likely when you start out, in a position with a low budget, underfunded, under facilitized, I guess is the word, but poor facilities, and you're going to have to become a better strength coach to figure out how to do more with less. So that's really, really important. And you've got to be willing to sacrifice a little bit on the front end to kind of figure that out for yourself.
Yeah, and another big time sacrifice in my eyes that I think is really important is if you really want to work in this industry, you can't allow yourself to be pigeonholed to maybe some specific areas or specific has to be Division I, has to be Division, whatever it is. There's jobs out there, and sometimes it might require you to move across the country and be away from your family. And I know that's really, really tough, but at the same time, you might find a different personal level, and that's why you have to go to that specific area. My internship was at the University of New Mexico, and that was something that was huge for me. Yes, the strength and conditioning aspect, but I was able to grow as a person spiritually, and that kind of stuff was really important to me. And you sometimes going away from your comfortable environment is going to challenge you for those kind of things, and that's going to make you a better coach in the long run.
Yeah, finding out that balance of what I'm willing to give up, which you do have to give up a lot on the front end to find your ideal spot. Finding that balance early on and realizing who you want to work with. There's the school aspect, and then there's also the teams. A lot of GAs, which is your first job typically after an intern spot, a lot of GAs will be working with maybe a cheerleading team or a tennis team or whatever the sport is. The ones that you see in the glory in the spotlight are typically football, baseball, basketball. Those are some of the bigger ones that you see on TV a lot. If that's your end goal, that's fine. If your end goal is track and field, if your end goal is tennis, that's also fine. When you start, be willing to work with everyone, learn from a lot of different fields, because you'll realize there's so much carryover between the two, or between all the different sports, and then work your way towards what you want to be. If you want to be a basketball guy or girl, be a basketball guy or girl, but it can't be something right from the very beginning, or it's not likely. You can try to do that way, but you might pigeonhole yourself early, which is not ideal.
Yeah. Again, guys, there's a lot of things that kind of go into all the factors to becoming a strength and conditioning coach. I know I'm blessed every day to get to work in this industry, and I hope there are a lot more guys and girls who are interested in becoming strength coaches. Again, it's an incredible field, and I wouldn't change it for the world, but there's a lot of things to consider, and make sure that you keep those things in mind. So thanks for joining us for today, and be ready for our next episode coming up.
We'll see you guys later.